Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about curiosity and the cultivation of curiosity, particularly, which I think is a important emotion and psychological disposition that we should all be aiming towards striving. Now, we all have curiosity as children when we are first immersed in this reality, this strange, confusing, but also exciting reality for all the various mysteries that it holds, for all the adventures that it affords us. We all have this innate disposition within us as children. It's what compels us to ask all these why questions, to question the state of affairs, because as children we're coming to the world without all of its conditions, without all of its models, all of the things that aim to mold and shrink us into a particular um, kind of ideal or socially ideal version of ourselves. And we're conditioned out of asking all these questions. We're conditioned out of questioning all the ingrained assumptions of society. We're sort of just encouraged to shut up and just accept the way it is. But when we do this, we become stifled and trapped within these models that we have. And when we become trapped within the models, we just accept the way things are simply as they are. We we're unable to really step back and be curious about other ways of being in the world, other ways of seeing the world, other ways of acting in the world. We instead just accept the conditioning. And when we're children, we're not conditioned yet. We're not conditioned into that kind of just mundane acceptance of the way things are. We're instead curious and we're open to different ways of being in the world, open to seeing the world differently. And curiosity is the emotional and psychological foundation which underpins all of that. Because with curiosity, you're in this state of exploring the world. You're in this state of trying to figure things out, trying to, you know, deconstruct things and figure out why is this the way it is. You don't just accept what you're told. You want to look yourself and try and discover yourself. And that's what children do. They explore and they play and they figure things out until they have that sort of curiosity conditioned out of themselves. Whether it's in school or by their parents or by society, there are lots of factors and elements within society that we're integrated into where they will condition you out of this sort of innate curiosity, this innate desire to ask why. It's like when you often see this with children where they constantly ask why questions to really make the parents think and make them recognize these sort of blind spots within their own thoughts. And you know this is why in that the famous parable of the emperor's um, invisible cloak, it was a child who first pointed out that the emperor was wearing no clothes. It's because the child, they haven't been conditioned into the absurdities of society. They're more closely tethered to the source data, the source isness of reality. They haven't been molded into a particular way of seeing the world, and it's these conditioned ways of seeing the world which they sort of give us sort of these goggles, these filters that makes us only see one thing, and then we forget the intrinsic mystery, the intrinsic openness, the fact that things don't remain the way they do for all the time. you know Change is almost a fundamental process and feature of this universe we're in. Nothing stays the same forever. That's the nature of impermanence. Things are flowing, changing, and fluxing. And when we recognize that, this inherent flux and change to the universe and to ourselves, you start to notice the inherent novelty, the inherent newness of things that come. And when you are sort of attentionally oriented to the inherent novelty and newness of the world, you start to notice the little mysteries that arise. The little quirks and curiosities. You're not bored by reality. Instead, you're constantly uncovering deeper layers, deeper patterns. I think that's the nature of curiosity, really. You're wanting to look deeper into reality, to break down all these sort of limiting barriers and models that our perceptual system has been conditioned into, and you're instead wanting to see beyond the veil, to see deeper into truth. And that's what a child aspires to do when they are curious and when they're playing and when they're exploring the world. They're wanting to get a grip on the way things are. But often, that desire to get a grip on the way things are, a grip on what reality is, they don't find out themselves. Instead, they are told what reality is. They're conditioned into a certain state of affairs. But of course, all our models, they are just models, they're just maps. They change, they track reality. The map is not reality. The map is a representation of reality. And it's important not to get stuck in our maps, in our ideologies, in our fixed and rigid ways of seeing the world, because that's how curiosity dies, because you're not open to being wrong. You're not open to new things, to data which doesn't cohere with your map. Instead, you're trying to fit reality to your map rather than fitting your map to reality. So really the essence of being curious is understanding that you only ever have models. You're only ever tracking a reality that is constantly eluding your models. And when you maintain a kind of a flowing kind of openness, a flowing openness to the inherent change and the fact that new things will arise, then you are in a state of curiosity. That's when your attention is most attuned to reality as it is and to how it is right now in the moment. Because, when we lack curiosity, we're simply not paying attention to the inherent mystery of our existence, the inherent mystery of our surroundings, the inherent mystery to our own bodies, our own being, and to the world that situates us. We're instead paying attention to a rigid, inflexible model of reality that often we've been conditioned into seeing. When you're just ignoring really the unknown unknowns. But when you sort of open up and you start paying attention just right now to the flowing processes that are emerging within your body and your mind, your psyche, and the world, then you are aligned within that center. And in that center, everything is arising. And everything is new and flowing and processing. And then you're like, it's what's coming up to me right now is the nature of psychedelic experiences, because psychedelic experiences are very powerful in their ability to really deconstruct your models, your conditioned ways of seeing the world, returning you to a very primordial state of being, where you're very much here in the here and now. And it's a very almost childlike way of being in the world, because you're seeing the world as it is prior to all your models. You're instead seeing the inherent richness and complexity to things. And, that's a very liberating, but also quite a powerful experience to go through. Often people will react with anxiety and fear when they have their models of reality thoroughly deconstructed, because models, they provide a sense of psychological safety, but it's ultimately an illusory safety, because it's rooted within ignorance of the fact that they don't know. But when you accept the fact that you don't know, then you are paradoxically in a more knowing place, because you know the limits of your consciousness, you know the limits of your thought patterns. When you know those limits, then you are able to just sort of align perceptually to the way things are and the way things are arising, and you'll be able to notice new things just as they are, and without this sort of desire to try and conform the new thing to all your prior embedded ways of knowing. That's when you're truly curious. That's when you're truly open to learning about the world, and you're not rigidly attached to your beliefs and your embedded models of seeing the world. That's when you're in a much deeper alignment with reality. So I think curiosity is very, very important as we sort of engage with the world, as we think about our place within it. We should be curious to how we can be wrong. Should be curious and attuned to how others could be wrong. And, of course, we shouldn't just dismiss all the beliefs of ourselves and all society, but we should just retain and center with a kind of openness to the raw mystery, that childlike sense. But yeah, it must be interesting. Like and subscribe. Enjoy.